pest, any season with a solution.
So flies are really everybody's pest. Unless you live in an Arctic region, most people are going to deal with a variety of flies, including house flies, cluster flies, fruit flies, drain flies. But in commercial settings, phorid flies and moth flies, these are going to be a big issue along with house flies. Whereas in mausoleums and other resting places for human remains, they may deal more with phorid flies, especially the coffin fly. For horse farms, and we have more than a few of those in Kentucky, horse flies can be an issue. But if you spend a lot of time outdoors, especially around brushy areas, then maybe deer flies are going to be your problem. So each situation is actually unique, and the type of fly or flies that you might encounter can vary depending on each setting. Sanitation issues are the main cause of flies, or structural problems. And that's the most common two causes of flies, indoors or around structures. When you're dealing with farms, of course, there's more feces and rotting hay, spilled feed. There's more of this available, so you're going to have more flies. In commercial accounts and food stores, phorid flies, fruit flies are going to be the most common. Phorid flies are going to feed on decaying organic matter and are going to inhabit areas like drains. And of course, once the eggs are laid, you have what's a seemingly endless supply of flies that are going to come from the drains. All of this can be prevented simply by just keeping the drains clean. Fruit flies are typically going to be found where fruits and vegetables are found. And the introduction of fresh fruits and vegetables, this is going to come with the possibility of the introduction of fruit fly eggs that's already present in many cases on the food. And if the food isn't quickly consumed or prepared for later consumption or properly stored, then these fruit fly eggs will hatch and complete metamorphosis, and adults will emerge and repeat that process. In homes, often cluster flies will be found in attics and other voids. And they're attracted both to natural and artificial light and to heat from the structure roofs and from attics where they often overwinter. So we can simply seal up entryways and prevent them from recurring. Coffin flies can be a problem in mausoleums and other areas where human remains are kept or stored. And there's actually one species of coffin fly, the Conocera trivialis, which is especially aggressive. Adult females have been documented to dig down through 2 meters of dirt access remains, and that's the equivalent roughly 2 miles for the human. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean, flies can be some amazing creatures, but each fly is unique and it's attracted to varying food sources, and they depend on differing environments. But all flies within structures are caused either by a structural problem or a sanitation problem. And knowing what kind of fly you have and why it's present is the first step in eliminating the pest. Another question we get often is, do flies carry diseases? And the answer is absolutely. Flies can carry several diseases. As a matter of fact, if you've seen where they spend a lot of their time, it's quite telling. Of course, we see flies around feces and decaying flesh and rotted food and other sources of filth. So you can understand how they could easily spread disease if they land on this and then they come and land on your food, and then subsequently we eat that food. But what's even worse is the way many flies feed. So the fact that they feed through their proboscis or their elongated mouth parts, and then they drink their food is important. Because before they can drink it, they have to regurgitate digestive juices onto the food. So just imagine, if you think for a moment what happens when a fly has eaten from feces or a decaying body or some sort of rotted material, then lands on your food, regurgitates digestive juices, and then begins to eat your food. And oftentimes we shoo it away and it doesn't get to eat, so we are then taking in those digestive juices, and it's gross, I understand. But houseflies can carry over 100 known pathogens. They can cause food poisoning. They can spread bacteria onto food. They're known to spread diseases like typhoid, and anthrax, and salmonella, and cholera, and even tuberculosis. Fruit flies, they're more known for causing food poisoning, and that can be a big issue because they're generally going to be present in food establishments or places that serve food, especially if they have fresh fruit and vegetables. Horseflies can spread anthrax, trypanosomiasis, and tularemia. So that's very important in the horse industry and people that are around horses a lot. Low flies, they can transmit plague, and, anthrax, tularemia, and even tuberculosis. So to answer the question, yes, flies definitely can spread diseases, and even if they're not spreading diseases, however, they are able to spread pathogens and cause food poisoning and other issues that are going to cause issues or going to cause problems with humans. So they're just nasty to have around. We don't want them in our restaurants, we don't want them in other food places, and we don't want them in our homes either. Flies are usually active late spring to early fall. This is their time. Late spring to early summer seems to be when they are at their peak, but in many cases, homeowners especially are going to see them early spring to late fall, or around early spring and then again at late fall rather, as it begins to be cool at night and then warm up during the day. This actually can cause more flies to be seen maybe than any other time. And the reason for this is because cluster flies tend to be either coming out of hibernation or going into hibernation at this time. And so as the days warm up, they come out to spend more time in the sun, in the warmth, before they return back into the structure when it begins to cool off. So once it drops below a certain temperature, you won't see them again until those temperatures begin to rise the following season. But yes, homeowners typically are going to see flies maybe more often during the early spring and the late fall because of cluster flies. In commercial accounts, probably fruit flies or drain flies are going to be the most commonly seen, and those can happen year-round, but are going to be most common late spring to early fall. So here at Four Seasons Pest Solutions, we've been controlling flies since 1978 through our sister company, Cumberland Service Exterminators. And most recently, we developed the ISMER Fly Control Program, which consists of several aspects that make it very successful: inspection, identification, sanitation, structural modification, mechanical control, and residual control. And each of these aspects work in harmony and hand in hand with each other, and they work together to ensure a successful and complete fly management program. So if you call our office and you have a fly issue, generally what's going to happen is our staff are going to come to the property and inspect the property, and of course identify the type of fly, and then we'll begin to make suggestions and modifications regarding sanitation, because without proper sanitation, fly control programs aren't going to be successful. Once sanitation has been addressed, we can deal with structural modifications that need to be implemented. That can include door sweeps, sealants, screening, and several other methods of exclusion that may have to take place. But it depends on each unique scenario. Mechanical control using fly lights or air curtains can also be necessary. The final step in our fly control program, of course, is going to be residual control measures. These can help take large populations and thin them down, and also help to further prevent infestation. So in a nutshell, that's our ISMER fly control program. It's very simple and very straightforward. We want to inspect and identify, then we deal with sanitation, structural modification, and mechanical control, and then residual control with insecticides. So we invite you to inquire about our ISMER fly control program if you're dealing with flies. All of our programs can be tailored to your individual needs, to your specific location, to your specific type of structure, and even to your budget. But when it comes to flies, there's just no room for flies in a commercial account. There's really no room for flies in the home. We want to get those out because of the several diseases, and even if they're not going to cause any diseases, the illnesses that can come along with flies being present. And besides that, just the sheer aggravation of having them around.
It's good to have Four Seasons on your side.